Code of the Samurai is a title that doesn't always get the recognition it deserves. It sees you taking on the fight of a wandering ronin, with the heart of the game lying in its combat system, which strikes a balance between accessibility and depth. The game features a mix of fast-paced swordplay and strategic decision-making, ensuring that every encounter feels meaningful. You get to utilize a variety of katana techniques, blocks and counters to take out enemies in stylish and satisfying ways. But what sets the game apart from others is its emphasis on timing and precision. Button mashing will only get you so far, and success depends on reading your opponent's moves, parrying at the right moment, and exploiting their weakness. This makes every duel feel like a test of skill rather than brute force, and really helps the game in the long run, as there are so many fights you'll find yourself getting into, but with the combat system in place, it never once starts to feel mundane. On top of this, each level is beautifully designed, capturing the essence of feudal Japan with remarkable attention to detail. From the tranquil cherry blossom gardens to bustling villages and eerie temples, each location feels alive and atmospheric. Now, the game strikes a good balance between linear progression and exploring, with hidden paths and secrets rewarding players who take the time to delve deeper into the world. Whether you're tracking down rare artifacts or helping villagers with their problems, there is plenty to do and see. Overall, if you're a fan of games like Onimusha or Tenchu, Code of the Samurai is well worth your time. It's a game that embodies the spirit of Bushido and delivers an adventure that is truly exciting to play from start to finish. When the original Wild Arms released on the PlayStation in '96, it became an instant classic, with its unique blend of traditional RPG mechanics, a Western-inspired setting, and a sweeping story filled with adventure, mystery, and camaraderie. Nearly a decade later, Alter Code F was released on the PlayStation 2, reimagining the first game for a new generation, and was much more than just a simple graphical overhaul, with it expanding on the story, adding new characters and mechanics, while preserving the heart and soul of the original. The biggest change has to be the combat system, which is ripped straight from the third game in the series and provides a much more engaging way to fight one of the many different enemies throughout the adventure. Battles are smooth and engaging, with each character bringing unique abilities and playstyles to the table, from heavy hitters like Rudy and Jack, as well as magic users like Cecilia, that provide a ton of variety when approaching each fight. As you advance through the story, you'll slowly level them up and unlock even more abilities to use in battle, and because of this, your tactics will constantly change throughout the game. Much like all of the entries in the series, apart from exploring and combat, puzzles manage to play a huge role, with the game's dungeons being filled with clever challenges that require the use of each character's unique tools, such as bombs and grappling hooks, which all serve to break up the pace of the game and offer a welcome distraction from exploring or fighting within the adventure. With its engaging story, memorable characters, and strategic combat, Alter Code F stands as a shining example of how to do a remake in the best way possible. So if you're returning to its world or jumping into the series for the first time, Alter Code F is the perfect jumping on point. When it comes to racing games on the PlayStation 2, it was by far one of the most popular genres, with the likes of Gran Turismo and Need for Speed providing some of the best races of all time. One game that often gets overlooked though is Connecticut. It's a real shame as well, as it's quite possibly one of the most creative racing games ever conceived, that all takes place well into the future, where drivers now strap wheels to their bodies and are covered in a protective armor as they reach insane amounts of speed and compete for glory. The best way to describe it would be Wipeout crossed with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, as on top of the racing is also a need to perform tricks that tie into the racing itself. During each race, you have a boost meter that can only be filled by performing stunts that lets the player boost around the track at increased speeds. This creates the perfect mix of trying to be as precise as you can while on the road, but ready to take a risk in the air to be rewarded in a tangible way that truly increases your chances of winning. Now, Connecticut's track design is one of its greatest strengths. The courses are visually stunning and filled with wild, imaginative layouts that push the limits of what a racing game can be. Expect a zoom through loops, corkscrews, vertical climbs, and sprawling jumps, all set against a variety of futuristic backdrops. And with the frame rate holding at a solid 60 FPS, it all looks incredible in motion. With its innovative gameplay, stunning visuals, and challenging track design, it offers an experience that feels fresh and exciting even today. And while it may not have reached the popularity of other PS2 races, it remains a hidden gem that rewards players who embrace its fast-paced thrills and unique mechanics. The The Battle Assault series of Gundam games are easily some of my favourites to come out of the franchise, and the third entry will go on to mix up the formula with the shift from the 2D sprites of its predecessors to fully 3D environments that really paid off. You get to choose from a huge roster of mechs, each with their own unique moveset and weaponry, whether you prefer long-range combat with beam rifles or up-close melee action with sabers. There's bound to be a character that suits you, and with the controls being easy to understand, you'll be landing combos and dealing out devastating amounts of damage in no time. While the core mechanics are easy to pick up, mastering the timing of dodges, counters and special attacks requires practice and skill, and the inclusion of a boost mechanic adds a tactical layer to battles, as players must manage their energy wisely to evade enemy fire or close the distance for a melee strike. By far one of the game's most impressive aspects though are the visuals, with each robot being beautifully rendered with attention to detail, faithfully recreating their designs from the show. Whether you're piloting the Wing Gundam Zero or clashing with the imposing Talgis, the models are true to their anime counterparts, complete with smooth animations and visually striking attacks. The vibrant explosions, laser blasts and melee clashes bring a cinematic flair to every fight, making each encounter feel like a scene ripped straight from the source material. Whether you're a long-time fan of the Gundam series or are simply looking for a new fighting game to jump into, Battle Assault 3 is a game that deserves your attention. Endgame is an on-rail shooter that never achieved the popularity of the likes of Time Crisis or House of the Dead, but still offered up a pretty decent game to make your way through that's set in a dystopian future where a sinister corporation known as Endgame has developed mind control technology to enslave humanity. You play as Jade and take up arms to save your friend who's been kidnapped by the company and ultimately set out to dismantle their entire operation. Now the core mechanics revolve around quick targeting, precise shooting and managing reloads under pressure, with the game throwing all different types of enemies your way, from soldiers to drones and even mechs that all pose their own unique threats and requiring different strategies to defeat. Scattered throughout each level are also civilians that all too often try their hardest to get in the way of your shots, so taking your time and being careful is essential if you want to rack up a higher score. As with most on-rail shooters, the locations in which the action takes place helps keep the minute-to-minute play more exciting, and Endgame delivers in this department as well, with high-tech laboratories to sprawling urban streets. Each level is distinct and packed with a good amount of detail, including several interactive elements such as destructible objects and branching paths, adding a layer of replayability as players can experiment with different routes. Even though the game is fully playable with a controller, it's at its best when coupled with a Gun-Con 2 that provides precise aiming and an immersive feeling that's hard to replicate with a standard controller. So if you're looking for a new light gun game to give a go and have the right setup, Endgame is easily one of the best options to consider. When it comes to scrolling shooters, no name resonates as much as Thunder Force, with the franchise long being the gold standard when it comes to gameplay and unrelenting difficulty. The 6th entry was no exception, and once again sees you jumping into a ship and taking on a series of levels which are all carefully crafted with different enemy patterns, environmental hazards and insane set pieces that keep you engaged from start to finish. You take on the role of a member of the unified Earth Army, and it's never really made clear what your motives are, with you seemingly just being sent to destroy everything that shares the same airspace as you do. Luckily, your ship is more than up to the task, with a range of different weapons. There's one that fires twin waves of bullets that cover a large portion of the screen, which is great for taking out weaker enemies, but its firepower is useless against stronger enemies. These moments will prompt the use of stronger weapons like the free range, which despite the short distance it can travel, packs a mean punch and obliterates harder enemies as well as the bosses. To cover the most ground though, using the backshot that fires in a small corridor both in front and behind you is the best idea, and if you want to survive you'll have to adapt to your conditions and cycle fast between all of them. Though it may not reinvent the wheel, Thunder Force 6 is a celebration of what makes the series great. It's a thrilling journey through space, filled with epic battles, unforgettable music, and an unrelenting sense of challenge. Whether you're a die-hard Thunder Force fan or a curious newcomer, this is a game that deserves a spot in your collection as well. From Software have become one of the most prolific developers in recent times, but not many people are aware of their early games, with Shadow Tower Abyss being one of the better out of the bunch. It's a deeply atmospheric action RPG that builds on the success of Kingsfield and refines the formula, delivering a darker, more challenging and claustrophobic experience. You take on the role of a mercenary tasked with entering the Shadow Tower to rescue his village and reclaim the lands from an ancient evil. At first it may seem like a bit of a basic approach, but along the way you uncover scattered clues about the tower's history, its cursed residents and the tragic tales of adventurers who came before you. On the gameplay front, it all takes place from a first-person perspective, with the game emphasizing exploration, survival and combat. And speaking of battles, this is where Shadow Tower Abyss is at its most challenging. You've got weapon-based attacks and magic, but your weapons will degrade with use, which forces you to plan your attacks carefully. And the same can be said for the magic, which consumes a certain amount of your resources with each use. These mechanics really contribute to the game's oppressive atmosphere, as every decision in the game, no matter how small, comes with a real weight and consequence. While its high difficulty and dated visuals may deter some, it offers an unparalleled sense of atmosphere and accomplishment for those who persevere. Fans of From Software's later works such as Demon's Souls and Elden Ring will find much to love here, as Shadow Tower Abyss serves as an early blueprint for the studio's now iconic gameplay design. Metal Slug 3D was a huge departure from the series' norms, and instead of the action taking place from a side-scrolling perspective, it would enter the world of 3D. And while the game received mixed reviews upon its release, it remains an intriguing and highly enjoyable title for fans willing to embrace its take on the Metal Slug formula. You get to choose from one of several characters, each with their own stats and abilities, with the goal being to fight through expansive levels packed with enemies, vehicles and environmental hazards to overcome. The fast-paced combat and chaotic energy that define the series is present, with waves of enemy soldiers, tanks and alien invaders keeping you on your toes, and the emphasis on dodging incoming fire while retaliating with powerful weapons feels true to its 2D predecessors. One of the most significant additions to Metal Slug 3D though is the inclusion of an RPG style progression system. By defeating enemies, completing objectives and exploring levels, you'll earn points which can be used to upgrade your character's stats such as health, speed and firepower. Further expanding on this aspect of the game is the weapon customization that allows you to modify and enhance your guns, as well as providing a decent amount of replay value for those players that want to unlock everything the game has to offer. Even though it never received widespread acclaim, Metal Slug 3D did exactly what it set out to do, and that was to reimagine the classic franchise in a new and exciting way. That willingness to evolve is a testament to the creativity of the team behind it, as the game feels incredibly true to its roots. Ape Escape is a series known for its quirky humour, inventive gameplay and near endless amounts of charm, and much like the games before it, Pumpkin Prime delivered it all in spades, but would take the franchise in a fresh direction by shifting the focus from platforming to an arena-based party game. This comes in the form of a series of different activities, such as deathmatch-style battles on foot, in tanks and underwater, races on foot and in boats, and coin collection contests that take place in small arenas or absolutely huge obstacle courses. There's just over 50 levels to play through, and much like the mainline Ape Escape games, you've got a load of different gadgets that help you along the way, from slingshots to remote control cars and tanks, with each of the characters you can select coming along with their own unique loadout. But once you're out in the field, there's also various power-ups that you can use to your advantage as well, from invincibility to increased attack damage that really come in handy during some of the more challenging moments of the game. While Pumpkin Prime is enjoyable as a solo experience, it truly shines in multiplayer. The game supports up to 4 players, and the competitive nature of the events makes for endless hours of chaotic fun with friends. Whether you're racing to the finish line or battling for supremacy in a gadget-fueled brawl, the multiplayer experience is where the game's party game DNA comes to life. While it may not be a traditional Ape Escape game, Pumpkin Prime delivers a unique and thoroughly enjoyable experience that deserves a go. Ever since the first game on the PlayStation, Arc the Lad has been one of my favorite series, and even though Twilight of Spirits doesn't reach the same heights of the games that came before it, it's still a worthwhile adventure for fans to undertake. It sees you selecting from one of two brothers, with each of them belonging to a different race. Karg is a human, while Dark is a Deimos, a race often at odds with humans. This dual perspective allows you to explore the game's world through contrasting viewpoints, delving into themes of prejudice, identity, and unity. Even though the story is one of the best parts of the adventure, the gameplay is what really steals the show. Mainly the combat system that blends traditional turn-based RPG mechanics with a tactical, grid-free battle system. You get to control a party of characters and move them within a set radius and execute attacks, spells, or abilities based on their positioning. This system introduces a nice layer of strategy, as positioning is crucial for maximizing your attacks, targeting multiple enemies and avoiding counterattacks. As with most RPGs, each character has a distinct role in combat, from melee fighters and ranged attackers to spellcasters and support units. You've got a lot to contend with, and utilizing all of their abilities equally is the best way to come out on top. This is especially true during one of the many boss encounters throughout the adventure, often needing you to think critically and adapt your tactics on the fly. With its rich narrative, strategic combat, and immersive world, Twilight of the Spirits is a true gem of the PlayStation 2 era that's definitely worth a look for fans of the series or just RPGs in general. Well, that does it for today's video. Keep an eye out for part 3, as that will be coming up soon, so don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell to get notified about new videos. You can follow me on all of the socials, which are linked below, to stay up to date, and also join my growing community on Discord to meet many like-minded gamers to continue the conversation with. I'd like to give a special shout out to my Patreon supporters: Rhino, Skilljim, Shuden, Richard, Amy, Daniel, Dio, Omar, Strider, Pierre, Carl, Awesome Jacket Dude, Maximus, Scott, Alfred, Terry, Ryan, Alex, GameCube Galaxy, Curse Salaryman, Fake, and Paddy J for their continued support that helps make these videos possible. If you're interested in joining my Discord or supporting the channel through Patreon, you'll find all of these links down below. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch the video. I'll catch you next time.